Well, Qantas passengers say they heard a bang when one engine failed mid-flight on its way from Auckland to Sydney. Dozens of paramedics and firefighters were on standby at the airport after a mayday call was issued over the Pacific Ocean. Joining us live now, aviation expert Byron Bailey. Good to see you, Byron. It's been a while. First of all, what happened to the engine?
Yeah, hi, Peter. It could have been a variety of things. Engines fail for a variety of reasons. That'll come out in the wash. That bang suggests maybe a fan blade let go. There is a procedure. When you have a problem with an engine like that, you just reduce the throttle lever to idle and just confirm if it's still rotating. If it's still rotating and there's no vibration, you generally leave it at idle. If there is vibration or you can see that the spools are not rotating, then you consider severe damage and shut the engine down. But it's not a big deal. This is not an emergency. Pilots trained in the simulator dozens of times every year to do an actual engine failure checklist shutdown. It's not an emergency. This became overhyped like crazy.
Right, so you wouldn't have called for the mayday?
Maydays are grave, immediate danger. It's a distress call where you need help. It comes from 100 years ago. The French introduced the word maydays, help me, help me, help me. And it means you're in serious problem. You lose an engine in a twin-engine jet, you're fine. You can fly. Well, by law, you're allowed to fly for 180 minutes to an alternate airfield. That's for the 737. The 787's longer, but it was overhyped. And I was watching ABC at a friend's place, and they're talking about an emergency landing and carrying on. It wasn't an emergency. And you expect in a case like this, once you've, it's a pan, in actual fact, a lower grade, where you need urgency and you need some priority. But you actually advise air traffic control that you expect the approach and landing to be normal, which in this case it was. It's no big deal. But gee, I just can't imagine that 80-odd vehicles of fire and ambulance and police were standing by for something that was not an emergency.
Well, I mean, looking at the landing, though, I mean, after the engine went, it looked or appeared to be fairly textbook stuff. Would you concede that?
Oh, yeah, look, all you do when you're landing engine out is you use a slightly lower flap setting. You don't use full flap, and you land a few knots faster to compensate. So, yeah, it was a pretty normal landing. Engine out landings are normal. There's no big deal. And, yeah, the way this was hyped up is kind of a bit ridiculous. But why did the captain put out a mayday for an engine failure in cruise? I don't understand. Yeah, it should have just been a pan. And when it was downgraded to a pan, then, the communications from air traffic through to the media should have made people realise this was not a big deal. This was, Hey. And there's one other point I must mention about Qantas being the safest airline in the world. But these Qantas planes out of New Zealand are crewed by Jet Connect Kiwi pilots. They're not Qantas pilots. They're wearing Qantas uniforms and flying Qantas airplanes. So you'd have to ask Alan Joyce why he's using foreign pilots to fly Qantas airplanes.
Regardless, it would have been concerning for passengers. You know, they hear a bang, they hear a shudder. All of a sudden, the air conditioning goes off. According to reports, got quite warm in the cabin. The next step, I suppose, the biggest concern is you got one engine left. Let's say worst case scenario, and thankfully this didn't happen, but worst case scenario is that other one goes at some point. What do you do then?
No, it's never going to happen. The statistics show, unless you've run out of fuel, which has happened occasionally, and suddenly you're a glider. If the other engine failed, then you've got about 20 minutes of glide down to the sea surface in which you are going to be screaming mayday.
Yeah.
And of course, you turn your emergency locator transmitter on, and that via satellite will bounce to the Search and Rescue Coordination Centre, and they will know exactly where you are, and everyone will be rushing to the ditching location. Yeah. But, yeah, it's never going to happen.
Okay.
And, we've all had engine failures at some time or other. It's not a big deal. And the
Okay.
passengers, well, they should have been given a nice calming brief from the captain.
Well,
So,
I think they did get that. The captain or the pilot, one of them, they came down into the cabin and had a look out the window and, according to reports, assured them everything was going to be okay. But yeah, thankfully that scenario didn't play out, the one that you described there. 20 minutes left of flying time if both the engines go. Byron, we've got to go. Good to see you though. Thanks for your time. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Check